Hello, gamers! Welcome back! I might lose my voice pretty quick. I have recorded another video earlier, and in the previous video, I mentioned how I'm recording these all in one day. That one was actually like a week ago. I ended up there's too much going on. I was getting groceries, I had therapy, and then therapy was really hard, and it was just a tough week. And anyway, we're back. So we have last time we covered like these directional hit stuns. We did a simple version and like a more advanced version, but now we're going to cover Air Hitstun. And it is going to use the same principle of the video before that, where we use the Y velocity to control our animation. So like right here, our Y velocity controls this jump animation. Something I didn't mention why I like this is like you don't necessarily have to have a jump animation. It would make the game a little bit, or the animation a little bit nicer. Maybe you'd want like a little bit of a crouch down. It also means that like if you sort of recover from a state and fall back into it, you'll have this nice motion where you like are going, looks like you're moving up when you're moving up, and looks like you're moving down when you're moving down. But it's also super dope to have that for Hitstun as well. So it's gonna look something like this. It's a really classic thing. I took these poses directly from DMC5. You've probably seen it a lot. Same principle, but more for like a hit stun. So like we get hit, and I actually do the base hit stun for a few frames first. That's something you want to decide for yourself. And then after a few frames, it will, if you're in the air, then it'll transition to the air hit stun state. So what happens is that we sort of, I think there's like I have a really strong blend on it. Turn that off to show it better. The two reasons I do that is because it's sort of simpler, although there's already a bunch of if statements in that thing. So the idea is, why I'm saying it's simpler is that like you just go to this one state and then the state handles it after that. But the other reason is that like when you're doing like air combos, it's kind of nice to have sort of these directional hits in the air as well. And then you blend into this air hit like this. It can look nice, but it can also look a little bit weird. Maybe I'll show it. But let's just focus. Focus, Tara. So you get hit, we're in that regular hit stun state, and then we immediately go into this. And we want like a little bit of a blend, but I found that like a pretty strong blend helps a lot. This is maybe another reason to have it. So you can have that initial impact, and then you sort of blend into this air state. So we're going straight up, so we're like facing, we're looking like this. And let's actually bring it up in I've already made it. But we'll go through and make our own. So basically, and I have it reversed just because I think, because positive is 1 and like negative is down. So I had like the lower number on the left side. It doesn't matter. Like you can just program it differently. But so when we're on our way up, we're like this, right? We've been sort of like hitting the stomach, even though we might be hitting the face, it still looks nice. That's why else this is nice. You sort of go through a big range of motions. It kind of looks good for no matter what's happening. And then on the way down, we're doing like this. So we're falling. And then we have a nice blend in between. One of the things that helps a lot is early on, you animate the head a lot, and you bring the hands forward like that. And then here, probably just soften some things out. Like if I deleted this, they're just kind of like stiff as a board. Doesn't quite work. So we sort of arch our back a little bit, maybe. Sort of control this motion better, so it looks like our upper body is falling over our hips. You know what I mean? And then our hips like trail behind like that. See it in motion. And I can't control the camera while we're... And so this isn't being controlled in a normal manner. Like we're not just playing through. We are using this Y direction value to control the motion time. So that's what you would do to set that up. I talked about this in that other video as well, where you could have separate animations for up. and sort of middle and down. And that way you could sort of animate the feet a little bit. I also talked about that video how I think it's sort of a beginner trap where you have this sort of static pose and you want some motion, right? Which is understandable. You don't want it to look static. But they sort of just like flail the arms around, and they're often animated very poorly. I see it a lot. Just something to keep in mind. So what I'm getting at is like, I don't feel like it's needed. You can do it though. But another reason why it's a bit tricky is that the timing on this is pretty precise. This is like, even though it's controlled by the velocity, there's some timings that we want and some motions that we want that like having a blend is a little, a blend of like full animations. Like if you had this sort of animated, it's a little tricky. There's some stuff you could do, but almost seems not worth it at that point. Yeah, so to get back to it, you'll make a new state here and we control the motion time, which is where it is in the animation, by this thing called Y direction. And in that previous video, we already set up how we animate that. So I also talked about how I do this. We have sort of the direction, or the target that we're trying to reach. And then we do target minus self times a value. And so if this value is between 0 and 1, and if this value is 1, then it means we just basically, it'd be the same as writing y equals target, y direction equals y direction target. But it lets us sort of soften the blend into it. Sometimes it matters. Like I mentioned, I end up not doing it. I keep this at 1, so this really doesn't matter. The main part is here, like this could just be y direction equals, and it would be fine. I have it there in case I want to use it. So we're doing an inverse lerp. So inverse lerp is normally you go between two values based on 0 to 1, right? So you provide a percentage. In here, inverse lerp gives you a percentage. So we have -1 to 1. And we are passing in our velocity. So when we're at -1, we're going to get 0. When we're at 1, we're going to get 1. Does that make sense? Hopefully. You could do a remap as well. This is because in motion time, it's 0 to 1. Not let me scrub. So 0. So 0 in motion time, but -1 in velocity. And then +1 here, also +1. So you sort of have to remap that. Additionally, I mentioned this in the other video. I'll illustrate it. These global variables that sort of let me control all sorts of different things in the game. So we can update it live here. So we have this velocity rate. So we multiply our velocity by this. So why do we do that? Well, if we didn't, we just kept it at 1, our velocity isn't quite, a positive velocity at 1, a whole unit is super fast, right? So our velocities in actuality are pretty slow, or pretty, small, or like fractional. I mean, it's all relative, right? So saying it's small is weird, but basically our velocity is only like 0.2 roughly. Okay, passive physics, let's see here. So we go boop. So our velocity in the y direction is 0.09, and gravity's getting hold of us, so we're going down. So you can see these numbers are quote unquote small. You get pulled down, at the max are about 0.2. If we had more room to fall, it's roughly like 0.2. Although there's no terminal velocity, so I think it eventually gets pretty high. So we kind of have to scale that up. So we need to scale out like what is actually being represented. That way we reach that whole like -1 to 1 range. So if we just blend it a little bit, see, it works a little bit better. We're not quite making it all the way through. But if that's just a number I found that works, and that's going to depend on your animation and like what you want for your game, and then also your physics, like your gravity. So this is just something you're gonna have to figure out yourself. But it's quite easy. It's literally just one value. Then we have it in there. Looks super good. I will show you like extreme version. You know what I mean? So it's like we really have this sort of like smaller margin. Do something a little in between. So it's like a little more snappy, but it doesn't quite look great. It can look okay with these like jumping animations, but with this, I don't know, we kind of really want to capture that motion as best as we can. And if we do like continual air hits, it's like the same thing. And this is where I'm talking about where having that initial hit be directional can make it look nicer. But it can be a little bit weird. It creates a really unnatural motion. You can see their head is turning to the left and right a little bit. That's what I'm talking about. Where I have these sort of initial hits that give us a little bit of that motion we get on these like ground hits like this. If you can find your own way to sort of make that look good, I would love to see it. This is what I came up with, and I'm sort of falling out of love with it. I don't really, it's in the game, but I don't really care about it. Just having this single animation looks pretty good. DMC5 does it, and like if they do it, that's pretty good, right? That's a pretty cool game. Yeah, and so the other thing I want to mention, that's basically it. That's the implementation. So basically when you're in Air Hitstun, you pass this, you calculate this Y direction, and then you pass it to the animator, set float Y direction. And so you will need to have a Y direction. I guess here you wouldn't necessarily need it. A separate variable, you could do the calculation right here. But have a variable for it here, and then have it as a parameter in here. And then in your Air Hitstun state, any other multipliers you have, this is for like when the game's paused and stuff. And if you have like slow down, like time scaling. And then motion time, again, that's what controls where it is in the animation. So if we had a way of like knocking them straight up without any the gravity in here, yeah. I'm gonna get rid of the gravity. You'll see they're just stuck going up, but then they fall out of Hitstun, so it stops working. And the friction took hold. That's why we sort of like flattened out. Bring the gravity back. Yeah, I mean, that about covers it. I don't know what else to say. Really quite simple. We'll go in and animate it. The other thing that I wanted to mention in this video, doing the exact same thing, is I have a downstate. So a generic downstate. Depending on different attacks and other sorts of things, I have a face up and a face down. And so in my animator, we have our downstate. And this is actually a blend tree. And then in the blend tree, each one of these, the overall motion time is still controlled. Let's go back. So Air Hitstun, create state, empty, let's call it air hit, any multiplier ones that you want, and then in motion time, we use Y direction. You can do all sorts of stuff, but in our case, we're using Y direction. And then we pass the air hit. This is going to control this motion based on that Y direction. In the down state, we're actually creating a blend tree. You could have separate states. You could have it really, a blend tree is overkill because we don't need, because it's, in my case, it's a binary. It's just face up or face down. You could create something where you actually have like a roll where the character's rolling. You could make it really dynamic. It would be quite sweet. And I would like to try doing that in the future. For now, it's just a binary. But the reason I do it is that way I can just pass this one thing here and then pass, again, I'm passing Y direction for the motion time. But in the tree, I have this sort of down parameter. And down, basically, again, like based on what move hits you, it's just like an explicit thing you have to set. You just kind of have to make it make sense for each animation. And like I mentioned, it does blend between the two. It's not necessary. It's always just going to be a binary. But that Y direction still controls our up-down motion. And so that's what we have here. So once we hit the ground, we enter this state, and we have a little bounce that we've set up in our script. And so when we're going upward, we get this, and when we're going downward, we do this. I'll talk about it when we get to animating, but we might even adjust it. You can see how I exaggerate a bit. I think it would be better to keep the center of gravity at, I've sort of changed my philosophy on it. Keep the center of gravity like right here. But you might find that this just looks better. If that doesn't make sense, we'll get into it when we start doing it. But basically, it's the exact same thing. So with the jump, with the air hit, and with this ground bounce, we're using our Y velocity. It's the same value. And we sort of make any adjustments that are necessary to make it look good, like in the animation itself. And it's motion time, so it's in one animation, which I find really useful. I didn't mention that earlier. It's also nice just to have a single file that has all that. Yeah, so let's get a little bit into it. I say this before, that was the technical implementation side. Now let's get to the artistic side, which always takes a lot longer. But it's also important. Keep checking my phone. Getting lunch with my mom, and I'm not sure when she's going to be ready. Hopefully we get this done. We should. I mean, we basically covered it. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to call this one old. We just have like a backup. Although I really like this one. It looks nice, but we'll go through it. Go to our idle. Grab it, and we'll start from scratch. Shift D, duplicate, bring it over. Sweet. And like I mentioned, like you could do like 1 to -1, I think would work, or just do the math differently if you want to have up on the left side, because it makes more, you're often going up for like, that's the motion is up and then down, because that's how gravity works. Usually we do something against gravity, and then gravity pulls us back down. Sorry, allergies are crazy today. So if you wanted, but I usually just end up doing this. So in this first part, like, we are getting knocked upward. And another thing to note is that, like, we are sort of putting the motion like right here, because you can be getting knocked upwards and look like this if you want, right? And we end up going through that. But if you're doing like single frame animations, like this would look good, especially if you rotated it with the velocity, which is what we're going to do in another future video for like advanced like Hitstun stuff. But in this case, we're covering both. So we want to sort of get knocked up here. And it's going to create a counter motion with the head. So the head sort of gets knocked down, and then the head sort of feels that impact as well. But it also is selling that idea of like falling over your body and then falling back over is down like this, right? So you see that the head starts curled this way, knock back, and actually curls back in So this is like almost an identical pose to this. It's just going the other direction. We do a couple of little things to sort of like sell like how the gravity is working. Like this one, it's like we have the motion and the gravity, and then this one, it's like these are more like trailing behind. So it's like a little bit different. But let's just do it. So we want our hands sort of like brought down like this. We want our feet together to really sell that sort of aerodynamic look. But we want them a little bit maybe off. I don't know. You'll have to see because like you want it to sort of look aerodynamic, to be dramatic, but you also want it to be natural and also out of control. So you have to sort of figure out what works for you with that. I'm actually going to bring this up because we want to keep our feet on the ground roughly. I found that works. And went on a huge rant on my other video about how it's okay to copy, especially for the ones who did it. Just kind of want to peep like what my shape is like. But humans learn by copying. It's literally all we know how to do besides cry when we're born. We know how to cry, we know how to copy. And that's beautiful, and that's what makes us so cool. Right? And so like saying that that's bad is like ridiculous. That's how we all learn. We just pull our hands down like this, like we're being affected by gravity. You know, really not much else to show on this part. I could have selected all these and then did individual rotation, but and then we get knocked up, and I'm actually gonna just do the downward one, and I'm actually gonna do what I said. Well, they are different, but I'm gonna go ahead and paste it. Adjust it here in a sec. If we alt click, this is something I just learned. I think I needed to hit alt every time. You can multi-edit if you do. Oh, looks like I need a little bit of rotation. Okay. They seem like they're all twisted up. I feel like something's wrong here. Oh, no. Because the knees are facing the wrong way. Coolly. So, adjust this a little bit. Now, this time we're less sort of being impacted by a hit, you know, now we're sort of just like falling. So I kind of relax the arms a bit. They're already pretty relaxed. And we'll compare it to this. Pretty good. You might want to push it back a bit. There's going to be a lot of velocity on the character, and you don't want to push it back too much because I guess it doesn't matter too much. I was going to say because we're controlling the velocity, like the rotation, but we're not in this case. In other Hitstuns, you'd want to keep it pretty centered. So another thing that happens is that bring the hands up and the head gets knocked back. So about at 39, start to do this. Bring this head back. We make some adjustments to the feet just to like correct the motion, but we'll you know, to make it blend nice with the next frame, but we will get there when we want. Oh, and we want these feet to stay down. I think that's why they were there too. Just looking at my shapes here. Wrong ones. You see this gesture a lot, like in Tekken and stuff, where the hands are out front. It's a little weird. Maybe there's a better thing we could be doing, but it just helps. I don't know. It helps. And pull the hands down a little bit. And it almost works already. Oops. See how this feet could come up a little bit more. I do this too. I kind of wanted to just see what I could do by just blending it, but I'm remembering that like having it like right here at this like 27 frame and this like specific angle and stuff just really helped sell it. Like it just really made it look the best. So let's sort of compare it to what we are doing. So yeah, not quite yet. We want to keep the head sort of like knocked back. Feet out. Do some of this too. We scrunch in like that. This motion's nice. This part's a little bit weird. They do it a little bit. Their motion is a bit nicer. Maybe I could pull this in. Let's see. I say there. I animated this. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Looks a lot better. Sweet. So that's how we do that. Let's take a look. Let's see how good we did. I won't look quite as good, but yeah, the motion's a little bit weird on that first hit. I want to bring the hands in more, but overall the animation is like Pretty sweet. Why do the hands look so different? Let's see what I did. Yeah, I do stretch these out quite a bit. Not that different. Huh. I'm curious. These I do pull down. I feel like every time I make this animation, like for different games, like I always end up like wanting to have the hands up here, but always ends up being better if they're stretched down. You know, they're really being trailing behind, you know what I mean? Like we've lost control, they're trailing behind. Some of it could just be like how I'm blending into the state and stuff. Like I might just be like scrutinizing it more because it's a new one, and maybe it's pretty similar to the other one. I'm thinking that's the case. We'll blend it a little bit. It's looking pretty good. It's a little bit of a weird blend on the bounce here. I just want to investigate it a bit. Not sure why it's doing that. Maybe that's why. Usually that looks pretty nice. It's looking kind of weird there, though. That looks better. We'll just stick to that. It just snaps instantly. So let's do that state then. It's really quite easy. There's not much to say, but I want to be thorough. I'm trying to be more thorough. I tend to like want to rush through my videos. I feel bad that they're like too long, but like, I don't know. I feel like some of the like artistry and like what it takes to like put into games and art assets is like not always shown like in like game dev videos. So really just going through it all and just showing your process like can be really helpful. So yeah, that's looking pretty sweet though. There's some things I would change, like the head could like flop back a little bit better, but that's for you to decide and you to do better. So let's peep these down states. Actually probably won't do too much. Like we won't make a new one, but I will go through as to like what works and why it works. And let's check the difference here as to why, or if maybe doing this would look better. We'll take a look. You know, so that way the center of gravity stays here as we go. But I sort of exaggerate it. I sort of do like an in-between to sort of sell the motion more, you know? Because that way, because we're going to see more often, we're going to see sort of like this bounce here, like this. We're going to see a little bit as they're falling down. So it makes the motion more dramatic, but they're going to like sink through the floor a little bit. We'll see. Because it has to be like this, right? Where you're like flat on the ground here. You know, things to keep in mind is like, I guess I should just do it, right? Okay. Oh my gosh. So you can see I have down, down, and down, up. So that's like for face down. And for face up. We'll do face up since that attack we've been showing uses it. And it's the more common one I use. You could really get away with just having one down state. If you're sharing animations, it's kind of nice to have more. And even if you're not sharing animations, because it's not a ton of work, but it is more. You know, games are a lot of work, and having more, you know, it adds up. There's already a lot to do. So flat on our back, right? So let's pull our feet forward. Try and another thing is to like get that knowing what looks good, like relative to their idle state. You kind of want it, because normally they're like tall, right? But now we're sort of like laid flat, and it's not always obvious, like, because maybe you just want the hips like directly below, but that would put them like way back here. And so, you know, it just kind of depends. We kind of want to center, kind of like kerning and stuff, like with fonts and stuff. Pulling our tippy toes out. So we're just going to trust our previous self. Bring that back. And even though, like, you could say that there is, you could just like flip the animation or something. You could rotate the character if you wanted like a face down or face up version, and you could, but there are slight differences in the pose that are important to keep in mind based on when you are flat on your back and flat on your face. Simply put, our torsos have like a thickness, right? And so our hands are going to be sort of like back further. Our head is going to be sort of knocked back like this. It's not going to be as obvious because of this creature, because they're like a dog. You know, like when a dog is face down, their chin is up. You know what I'm saying? Humans, we can go like face down. But if you got like a little snout, you can't go like face in the dirt like that. And so there's like slight differences, you know. I guess I'm not really explaining totally what I'm doing, but I like to put the hands up like this. You can do hands by the side too, like this. It looks less dramatic, but there might be reasons, like the blending might look better. You know, hands up like this. Just looks a little bit nicer, and I don't want it too up, but you know, that they're face up, that the hands too are supine position. This is supine if you don't know. And prone is on your stomach. You know, a lot of times, I know this is a technical thing, and you're not wrong for calling just like being knocked down being called prone, but supine is this. So the mnemonic device is like you hold soup in your hand, right? And if it's turned down, then you can't hold soup. So you can hold soup in your hand, that's supine position. So basically face up while down is supine. And in this case, I'm speaking about the hands. So like the hands being supine just looks more exposed, you know what I mean? Grab that. Looks pretty good. You want this pose to look pretty nice because they are going to be sort of laying on the ground too still. And this is somewhere where I could improve what I have going on because it is really static. And our knees tend to fall to the side like this, creating a little bit of asymmetry can help a bit just to create variety. But having a little bit of like a breathing here, unlike the air hit, this is a better contender for having a full animation here, or maybe just make it a separate state. Like you keep this as one animation, this, you know, like the up and down, but then just have like a grounded one that where they're like breathing, because it is pretty bad looking if this is completely static, which is what I have going on right now. Yeah, just something to keep in mind. But alternatively is that you have a full animation for the up and the down. It's just that when you're going up and down, you're moving. So it's like we don't really need to show like the breathing or anything. So yeah, just having that extra breath there, like a breathing thing, would help a lot, you know, where they're just sort of, you know, breathing, writhing. feel like our old one. I was wrong. I'm sunk down though. I think will be helpful. You don't want to look floating. You don't want to be too sunk in the ground, but you don't want to look like you're floating either. So we have this pose here, and then, like I mentioned before, like whatever direction you want. In this case, it looks like I do down. For, oh wait, I always do that. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, good. That makes sense. So falling down, go here. So what we want to do, grab this, and we're going to try, see how it looks when we keep our center of gravity. The more I think about it, the more I think it is going to look worse. You don't want to arch too much, but you do want to sort of arch all the body parts like they're falling upward like this. And you just want to find a good balance of motion. Like not too much, but also like, you know, make it look like we're flopping around on the ground. And can bring him in a little bit, you know, as opposed to like straight up and down here. Bringing up a little bit is a little more natural, but it can look bad if you bring him in a little bit too much like this. So you want to sort of keep him off to the side a little bit still. Gonna up a little bit. Actually bring these up a little bit too. Could animate the shoulders a little bit if we wanted. Probably end up looking a little bit nicer. Not too much, not too much. You don't want it to be unnatural. Like flopping here. I'm seeing that these are way uneven. Fall down like this. Get a little bit of sort of like counter motion. Overall, I'm sort of just testing like how it feels like. Make sure it feels like I'm falling. I'll compare it with my other one. Yeah, see, I've really exaggerated it. So maybe, I don't know. And I do bring him in a bit. It kind of depends. Like I've had cases where when I bring the arms in that much, it just looks bad. But I'm going to trust this one since it's on this character. Yeah, I bring the tail all the way up. And another thing, we're not necessarily blending all the way through when we're doing these little bounces. You know, we're kind of doing this, so it's okay to have the extreme. So yeah, we'll bring it in. We'll bring it in. Open their mouth a little bit. Normally make the so the feet aren't controlled by the IK, like they're controlled with an offset. For some reason on this one I didn't. I don't know why. What I mean is like when I do this, like they keep the rotation. You know what I mean? It's easier when they don't. It's like a more natural motion, like here. You know what I mean? You have less control, but the motion's nicer. So that's one less thing to worry about. Which is like one of my main things when I'm animating. Is just like less stuff to care about. Oops, I don't know why I was doing that. Sort of bringing everything in a bit. Actually want to point the toes a little bit to sort of sell that motion. Go back on what I said. The knee back in. Maybe bring them in too. That's kind of what my issue is here. Hmm. Kind of sinking down a little bit. It's just because of how things are parented. A little better. Still sinking a bit. You could sort of counteract that by up. You mostly won't notice it if it was like a smaller animation. Like it is a little bit weird. I'm not sure why. See, that might make it worse. That might make it better. I think I made it worse. Cheat a little bit. Is it that bad in the old one? No, I think this is why I have the hips rotated so much right here. I like to fight that a little bit. Ancient lessons from my past self. So yeah, have to we sink down a little bit, but that does help. I'm just sort of watching the overall motion because I feel like we're sort of scooching like front to back a little bit. Bring it over here just a little. Sorry, it's my mom just texted me. 1 sec, please. We're almost done. We should be able to get it done here. Oops. And you just do the opposite here. I think we're going up. Kind of arched this way. Up on our mouth to create a little bit more motion. Kind of scooching to the left. I don't know if you can notice. It's real subtle and you almost just like feel it. It's better. Cool. Sorry, I almost started quoting Flowery. Oh, I'm so tempted to. Delta in chapter 5, baby. Okay. So this new downstate, we'll see how it looks, and then we'll wrap up. We'll review and see what's up. You can see we're floating above the ground a little bit too much. Oops. The motion looks pretty good, right? I do think it's a little more subtle, but maybe that's nice. You know what I mean? It's up to you to decide. And again, that subtlety comes from like, could actually show pretty quickly. His feet are a little weird, I think. Yeah, I had it more like this, which I think looks a lot better. I'm going to fix that too. A little more natural. Take a look at that, and then we can decide. Maybe it does look better with the exaggeration. So basically, when we're going down, kind of fake a little bit of velocity by like pushing through. You know, just show it as updated over here. Let's see. It's almost hard to tell. There is more motion. I do think it's a little, you know, it's as you expect, it's going to be more dramatic. The bounce back up looks kind of bad. I kind of like the extra motion, but the bounce back up is really exaggerated now. So we go from here. Bonk. That's like a lot. Like this could be adjusted a little bit more, but oh, and they're sort of floating above the ground still too. See, that looks nicer. It is more subtle, but like it's just more smooth. And you could blend in between. This is a case where that, because we're bouncing, if you know what a bounce looks like on a graph, like when you do like a bounce, it's like these shapes that are like this, right? It's not smooth. It's not like a sine wave. It's like, because when you hit a surface, your velocity gets reflected based on the normal. So it creates that, you know, that classic like ball bouncing shape. And so when we go from like this frame to this frame, you know, between pre and post bounce, it's like, it's really dramatic. You know, it's a V shape. It's a really thin V. And so that's going to create like a big pop. This is a case where that thing I mentioned where we blend into it, it might look a little bit nicer. But we kind of don't want it everywhere else. But let's see, like, that's going to soften a little bit. It's subtle, but here, let's see. We can show it. It's a bad angle. But now there's just like a little bit of softness to the Y velocity value. So we're coming up, coming back down. And there's a little bit of a blend. It's, you know, 0.8 is still pretty fast, but it is a little bit of a difference. You can see these animations are maybe a little bit too it's really subtle. And overall, you can see the bounce isn't as dramatic because it's like too soft. It's stuck in between the two extremes because we've softened it so much. So if we go back, you know, this is just crisper. But it's there for you to use, you know, like if it's something you find works, you might like that. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Thank you, friends. Your support has been amazing. I love hearing from y'all. If you have ideas for videos, please let me know. Oh, I always like to do a review. I'm sorry. So for the downstate and the sort of air hit state, we control the motion time just like our, you know, 2 videos ago with a value, and that value is a Y direction. And we get our Y direction by taking the inverse lerp of our velocity and multiplying it by like a velocity rate, which is like an arbitrary value that looks good. We came up with 4.5. And the inverse lerp makes it so we can go from -1 to 1 remapped to 0 to 1, because our motion time, which controls where it is in the playback, you know, this is basically the y direction value is also like its position in the playback. So, you know, when we're at -1 quote unquote velocity, you know, normalized, I guess you could say, we're at 0 in the playback. And then when we're at 1, we're at 1. 1y value is also 1 in the playback. And then our velocity is actually scaled a lot smaller. It was like the negative, or it was like the 0.2 range. And so we found that a value of 4.5 stretched out our velocity enough, you know, like it's actually the y direction enough to fill in that full range of -1 to 1. Yeah, and we can use it to control, you know, this air hit, like this. We can use it to control these down states. Oh, I wanted to mention that. So like how I do it is like, so in like your character controller, if there's bouncy physics is like more like really cartoony sort of bouncy, like it just reflects everything. But basically, this is in the physics update. You can do it on the collider hit too, if you want. Like here I do it. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I might need both, but basically, oh, this is it. Sorry. This is what I was looking for. So if, you know, your collision flag, this is outside of the scope of this video, but basically when you're in like the air Hitstun state or any sort of Hitstun state, you know, these sort of conditionals are laid out here. And when I get to like the advanced Hitstun states, we'll talk about this more, where we like go into like more specific things. But basically what you can do is just like you have like an enum. That's what I do, at least. And basically whatever the enum is that you pass, like when you hit the character, it will transition to a different type of state. So either like a skid state or like a down state. And the default is down if they're in Hitstun. And I got a little off track here. Looking for, so right here, there's an initial bounce, because I have like sort of a bounce value that's also in the global variables. It's like the down bounce. So when it hits, we multiply it by -0.65. That's going to be for you to decide. Sorry, I was like saying goodbye. I know I'm doing all this stuff. I had meant to cover this. You do -1. And it's still going to sort of balance out because there's friction and stuff. You can see like how bouncy that is, right? And if you wanted like no bounce, be like honk. And I also have a thing here that like once it's underneath like a minimum, so absolute value is less than like this. This should be a variable too in that global variables thing. We sort of don't reflect it, and we actually like soften out the velocity. Otherwise, we just reflect it. So velocity.y times equal that down bounce value. So that's how we get that bounce. And then, you know, in a separate update, you know, other part of the physics update, we are calculating our y velocity, you know, doing that inverse lerp of our y velocity, you know, scaled by this to get our y direction. We pass that to the animator. And so as we bounce, we get that, or as we fly through the air, we get that air Hitstun. Okay, thank you all for watching. Thank you so much. Sorry again for the late videos. We're going to do 3 at least today, because this is the 3rd video I've done. I do a 4th because I want to do, because 3 will catch us up, and I want to do like a thank you video. And so probably in July we'll do like the advanced Hitstun stuff, for stuff like that, where you do like skids and stuff. It'll blend better. That's a separate thing. It's not, because in our previous video we sort of made these like nicer Hitstuns. Generally, what I do is like a single frame and then we blend into it, but we showed how to do some like nicer ones. But the skid is still using that old thing, and so it needs to. And I turned off that blending that happened. Anyway, God, I can't ever not ramble. Thank you all so much. If you have questions, let me know. Dream Girl Games on Patreon and Blue Sky. Y'all are amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to see what y'all do. Please let me know if you have questions, clarifications. I like helping. And if you want to see, I would really, I don't want to like outsource too much, but if you have ideas for VFX, I'm basically just going to start cranking out every little thing. There's a video game series I want to do called Every Little Thing About Game Dev, because I feel like there's little things that just never get covered that a lot of people sort of end up having to fight their way to figure out. So just things that aren't, but it could get kind of boring. So it would be nice to, because I don't always know what people would really find like useful. Anyway, let me know if you have video ideas. I do plan on doing like redoing some old videos, especially like the input buffer, and redoing the sort of, I don't know if I'll make it like a full tutorial, but you know, as we see here, we're covering stuff that applies to the character action template, which is the new, there's just a single file, it's character action template, but it'll have all the VFX we've done. They're all in here. And then all the ones that we continue to make will be updated, and this will be downloaded for free. My Patreon exists solely for you to donate if you want to. There's no obligation. Super believe in the free spread of information and ideas. It is vile. I'm sorry. Like all this, like people like making, some of them are okay. There are actually like really talented creators who put in a ton of work to create these sort of like classes. But we all know a lot of it is shit. And I don't want to be a part of that. So yeah, anyway, and on a positive note, character action games are awesome. If you have ideas for videos, let me know. I'm sorry I ramble, but at this point you should know. Anyway, I love y'all so much. Thanks for your support. Can't wait to see what y'all do. All right, love you. Bye.